All right, YouTube, as she descends further into lunacy, Hillary Clinton has again echoed her calls for investigation into Russian commies, which are attempting to infiltrate our election and destroy her campaign because Trump is their puppet or something along those lines. She was asked at her, last miniature press conference, where most of the questions are scripted and she cuts it off at some random point. She was asked regarding the Moroccan quid pro quo, which, is probably the most worrying leak that we've seen so far, more worrying than any of the viral leaks from O'Keefe or the rest of the crap from WikiLeaks. This really is what people, if they want to talk about a legal case, they should be fixating on this because it shows openly Clinton's top aide that she probably sleeps with at night sometimes. And I don't mean that in, I guess, the lesbian sense, but literally on the campaign trail probably does, to save room or something like that. Somebody she literally trusts with top secret info and tells her to stash it in the glove compartment when she's meeting with the Indian ambassador or some insane stuff like that. Even she got on Clinton's case regarding this, regarding the fact that it was a bad idea. Clinton ended up partially backing out of it. And Abedin, of course, criticized her for that, thought it was a terrible idea, and stated that Hillary had caused the whole mess and she knew it, which is, it's very funny, to the point where Abedin, I think, for once was being honest in this email. Uh, Clinton was asked about this, specifically what happened with regards to getting $12 million dollars and then setting up this sort of high-level meeting with some of these Moroccan figures and syndicates down there. And what does she say? Oh, well, I'm not going to comment on Russian interference in the election. What? She still hasn't even proved that the Russians were involved. Some people, her core fans, obviously think they were because they take it on faith that Obama's telling the truth, that Clinton's telling the truth. We've got, of course, PolitiFact saying, oh, yeah, it's absolutely true that all these intelligence agencies agree that Russia was involved. That it doesn't matter if the intelligence agencies think Russia was involved, because their word is worth nothing. I want to see evidence. I don't want simply their claims. I'm not going to assume that the government has my best interests at hand. In such a political climate, you've got a Democrat in office in the White House overseeing these agencies, who appears at least to have put some weight on the FBI in regards to their own investigation. Why would I not assume that the same thing is happening now? Oh yeah, just say it was the Russians so she can get away with it. No, I think that's probably what's happening here. I have no reason to doubt it. That claim is just as credible as the claim being made by Obama or Clinton in regards to the Russians. The fact that I don't like Putin, the fact that I side with the West as opposed to maybe the former USSR/Russian sphere, doesn't mean that I instantly believe that everything that goes wrong in the world is part of a neo-Soviet conspiracy, because clearly not. That's clearly bunk. If this were true, if they really wanted to affect the election and this were true, they'd just release evidence. They'd show us actual evidence that their claim is true. They haven't done that, so I'm going to assume that it's not true. Clinton has now used Russia as an excuse for virtually every woe that she's had. And she didn't begin, by the way, just recently on the campaign trail with new revelations. In her own emails, in her speeches to Goldman, some time ago, she's talking about how environmentalist groups, which really, by the way, aren't on board with Clinton, they're more like Sanders or Green Party or maybe certain other Democrats. They don't even necessarily support Obama to any great degree because of his unwillingness to stamp out the oil lobby or something like that. She was referring to them as part of a Russian conspiracy too. Oh, the anti-fracking, like hardcore environmentalist groups. Oh, it's all Russia. It's Russians all the way through. It's like, I never knew. It's like the same claims that are made by the real goofy progressive social justice warriors about how everyone's a Nazi, everyone's bigoted and filled with evil and spite and so forth. Those claims make it sound like Hitler won the Second World War. But if you listen to Hillary Clinton speak, it looks like the Stalinists actually won, managed to overrun the United States, and now basically control the U.S. political process. Well, I'm not believing that. Time runs a cover regarding the Putinists rambling about how Russia is influencing our election. Nobody has given any evidence that this is the case. It's just like nobody gave me evidence that chemical weapons had been deployed specifically by Assad in Syria, and at the time I pointed this out, I stood against the idea of involving ourselves further in Syria when Obama was saying, oh, let's conduct some missile strikes on Assad's forces on some of these depots or something like that. And turns out, in retrospect, those of us who stood against it were probably right, because the UN's own report didn't find that he specifically was necessarily the one that used him at the time. In fact, it looks like the FSA were the ones deploying these weapons. Then the media here, of course, glossed that over, ignored it completely, and continued to report on it as though Assad was provably guilty and the U.S. intelligence apparatus was perfectly virtuous, never lied, it could never be politicized. Every other bureau has been politicized at some point along the way. Bush used to politicize the EPA and specifically muzzle them to keep them from actually doing their job. And at the time, the same media that now applauds bureaucracy and says, oh, they could never be used for political reasons. They could never be compelled to lie either through threat or bribery or through political expedience. They suddenly trust these groups and expect all of us to trust them too. I don't. I certainly don't trust Hillary Clinton to tell me who's responsible for hacking her emails. Because when I look at what we know to be true, which is that these systems were not particularly well secured, and with the FBI themselves saying at the very least there was an opportunity for intrusion regardless of whether we have evidence it happened or not. When I look at that, I say it didn't necessarily have to be a state actor at all. It could literally have been the 400-pound hacker. It could literally have been the Mountain Dew swilling nerd. It could have been anybody. And if the person was halfway skilled, you wouldn't find evidence of who they were. Maybe they used a Russian proxy. Ever think of that? Well, of course, they probably don't care. Maybe it really was the NSA that leaked this material. It was pointed out some time ago. I think Snowden was the one that pointed this out. Oh, the NSA has all those emails. If you want to read them, just have the NSA release them. Maybe some disgruntled NSA agent did release them. Maybe it was somebody at the storage center, the corporation that had backups of all of Clinton's material and presumably could have gained access to everything Podesta ever sent and received. Maybe it was somebody there. Apparently every low-level employee had full access. The janitor could have gotten onto those systems and chuckled as he put them on a thumb drive and prepared to release them to WikiLeaks. It could have happened that way. So why would I dream up some convoluted plan by which it had to be KGB agents or something like that? I just don't think that's sensible. Clinton's excuses are getting old. This is now the 4th or 5th time that she alone, not even counting all the times Donna Brazil, Tim Kaine, and others working with her campaign have done this. They're all numbering in the dozens now too. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th time that she has deflected a question from the all but captive press that already fawns over and adores her on these various issues by simply saying, oh, I'm not going to comment because it was Russians. She expects us to take that seriously? I don't. I don't take it seriously at all. It doesn't sound sensible to me to presume that the Russians were responsible based on just having faith. Who has faith in the government? Who has faith in the lamestream legacy media at this point? Very few people. Congress's approval is down around 20% or somewhere shy of that. And yet you're trusting these people to oversee these bureaus, and then you're trusting the bureaus in turn. Well, why would you trust any of them more than you trust like the IRS or something like that? Their likability is generally very, very low. You got FEMA's right down there. The NSA as a total is down there. Some of these intelligence groups were from like literally the Coast Guard or the Department of Energy. Now, I'm not so sure that the Department of Energy is the greatest source of wisdom when it comes to cyber intrusion. I'm pretty sure the Coast Guard's intelligence, probably not, top tech or something. The Department of the Marines or something, yeah, okay. I'll say, yeah, that's a little bit more adequate. But it's still a claim. They still haven't coughed up any evidence. And how exactly did they get this evidence so fast? That's boggling to me. Oh, yeah, the next day they find out, oh, yeah, it was Russia all along. Well, how do you know that it was Russia? If you've got such sophisticated techniques, then why couldn't you defend these systems in the first place? Because you don't have sophisticated techniques. Hell, the 400-pound hacker eating the Cheetos and drinking the Mountain Dew is probably more skilled than half of the people at the NSA and the FBI combined. It's rather sad how far behind we really are in some of these aspects. She doesn't want to discuss an issue? Oh, it was Russia. What about O'Keefe's videos? Oh, yeah, that's probably Russia too. Oh, that time you fainted? Oh, must have Putin tried to kill you, tried to feed you polonium or something. You passed out. Oh, I wasn't on the campaign trail for a couple days? Yeah. Russians. I had to stay at home because there was like a van outside full of Russian people. They were drinking vodka and looking at me through binoculars. Oh, you did poorly at this speech. You said something stupid. Oh, the Russians tried to fry my brain with their scrambling device. It's gotten to that point. It's really like she's living in Spy versus Spy or something like that. She's living in the 1950s. Now, I'm the first to admit that the Cold War never went away and that Russia is still an adversary and an opponent on the world stage. The grand chessboard is still there. But is it sensible to say that everything that goes wrong, specifically with the Democratic campaign, has to be the result of Russia? Why didn't Trump come out and say, oh, that tape, the Billy Bush tape there, the pussy tape, was leaked by Russians to destroy my campaign? The claim would have been equivalent. It would have been exactly the same as the amount of evidence that Hillary Clinton, Donna Brazile, Tim Kaine, Obama himself have given us that the Russians were involved. And by the way, and let me echo this again for the third time, let's say it was Russia. Does that change the content of these emails? Does it matter as far as content goes? No, it doesn't. The content is still the same. What in Hillary's words, what difference at this point does it make? Whether it was Russia or a 400-pound hacker or, one of Assange's people, does it matter? Why? Why would it matter? I'm failing to see the difference. The content isn't magically different. We've now got people saying, oh yeah, some of these emails are doctored, they're fudged, they're not authentic. That's funny. Hillary Clinton never stated that at the last two debates. In fact, she corroborated their reality by referring to them as stolen. She didn't say, oh, these fake emails, or these fudged emails, these altered emails. No, she said these stolen emails, because they are real. They're not fake. And Russia probably was not involved. And if they were, I don't care. I don't care if China was involved. I don't care if it was the North Koreans. We have a right to see all of this dirt. We have every right. Saying, oh, these are private emails, or they were stolen, they were never meant for public consumption. I can understand why you didn't want the public to consume them. Just look at the content. That's what you're hoping people won't do. You're hoping they'll be too afraid of breaking the law, or getting a computer virus, or helping Russia to actually examine these emails. I'm reading them. I'm having a great time looking at how corrupt Madam Hillary really is. And I'm sure that the majority of the population does the same thing. Many people are not taken in by this crap about Russia. And even if they are, some of them are going to be like me. So what? Who cares if it was Vladimir Putin? At this point, Hillary Clinton, there's so much dirt, so many scandals wrapped around her, it's arguably Putin's a more honest individual, and I think he killed Nemtsov himself. So it's very, very funny to me to see the Clinton campaign begin to use this whining, retarded defense over and over and over again. You've got quid pro quo. You've got provable pay-to-play at the Clinton Foundation. You've got the Uranium One deal. You've got everything else under the sun. You've got her calling people deplorable and goofballs and retarded and everything else under the sun, calling Sanders' advisor a fucker, doing all sorts of horrible things, openly colluding with the DNC, usurping the election via the debate process by getting fed at least one debate question by Donna Brazile. You've got all of these scandals, and her only answer is, oh, I'm not going to discuss them because Russia. And this is the woman that you want to conduct diplomacy for 4 years with Russia in an already slightly vicious and hostile world environment where there's aggression from Russia. I don't think that's a great idea. I think it's a good way to start a Cuban Missile Crisis style situation that could unfortunately escalate further. Why do you think I spend so much time attacking Hillary Clinton? I don't sit there praising Trump all day. I've said his ethical reform is good. His tax plan certainly would be good for me. But otherwise, I'm either ambivalent about most of his views or, in some cases, I openly oppose them. I happen not to believe the Hitler, Orange Hitler stuff about immigration, by the way. It's because I'm not a Republican. I'm not a diehard Trump fan that pledges unwavering fealty to him. I'm simply far more concerned about Hillary Clinton. I am convinced, based on her words, that she's unfit for the office, incapable of conducting diplomacy. Her foreign policy, as stated, is already more hawkish than anything W ever concocted. And that worries me, because we have an unstable world that's growing more unstable, partially because of her ideas. She is primarily responsible for the mess in Libya, and that in turn is partially responsible for the rise of ISIS. She now thinks it's a good idea to run a no-fly zone in Syria. I disagree. I think it would be a disaster. I think it would result in the progression of what is already slightly warmer than 1980s level Cold War to something probably almost as hostile as what existed in the 50s. Let's just say if somebody remade Doctor Strangelove and they did it well, it'd probably become a big hit because people are thinking about that sort of stuff. Where people are still talking about zombie apocalypse, epidemic apocalypse, volcano apocalypse, asteroid apocalypse, nuclear apocalypse. Why do you think people are so tied into apocalyptic lore all the time? Why do you think that's so interesting to people? It's because a lot of people inside, they're worried that it's going to happen. They're trying to sort of get themselves used to it, I think, to desensitize themselves to essentially the death of mankind in hopes of rebuilding, I guess, a better future. And it'll be a glowing future. It'll glow in the dark because it'll be so radioactive. If Hillary Clinton's foreign policy were put into place exactly as she said she wants to, yeah, it would cause a world war. It would cause a nuclear war. Only the good advice of advisors and generals could keep her from causing a nuclear war. I don't think people realize that yet. Hopefully they come to that realization really quick, and they do their duty to do anything possible to keep her from being elected. Because I think it would be bad for the country if she were. Even in the most mundane of circumstances, we would suffer through 4 more years of anemic growth that even people like Donna Brazile admit, privately, again, in private emails they didn't want disclosed, is anemic growth. That people are paying too much, making too little, there are too few jobs for too many unemployed individuals, and the economy generally is screwed up. We're still living in la-la land when it comes to the debt. And by the way, that involves Trump too. He's in la-la land also. His plan to generate more jobs by reforming the tax code would take a long time to have that effect. It might work, but not immediately. And not fully. You still have to go further. Clinton's plan, meanwhile, would piss away all that's left of our wealth. We're already pissing it away. The idea of mass investments that don't actually stimulate anything is obviously not working, since it's what we've been doing for 8 years. I think it's probably time to give that crap up and give it a rest, because it doesn't seem to have helped us very much. Maybe it helped Wall Street, it didn't help Main Street. And that was the point. Obama was giving a kickback to people who funded him. That's why he bailed the banks out. It had nothing to do with saving the financial sector. It had nothing to do with reform. It had to do with giving free money to people who got him into office. That's what it was really ultimately about. That's about all. Peace out.